Sunday is finally here for week 12. We are alive, even though COVID is running rampant through the NFL. Football still goes on. All 12 games today are on, and we are here at the Fantasy Football Buzz podcast to walk you through the explosive COVID landmine of the NFL, let you know who to start, who to sit, who the streamers are, who to pick up, and we will answer all of your questions. But first, let's say hi to my co-hosts here, Keith 2020, Cyclop Brad. How are you guys doing?
It has been negative, so I feel good.
Did you actually get a test?
I had to recently.
Yeah, it's been quite a week for the NFL, for fantasy, for the games on Thursday, for players. Antonio Gibson blowing up and Will Fuller blowing up and all these, it's just been crazy. And then COVID started, really like on Tuesday, Monday, and it just seems like it's like a snowball for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, so let me explain what we're going to do today. Kenneth, hold on one second. Let me explain what we're going to do today. We're going to walk you through each of the positions and let you know through those positions who's starting, who's out, who's got COVID or who's on the COVID list, who's injured, who might be the replacements. And we think that that's the best way of addressing what's happening today. All of the updates on what's going to happen today will be built into that. So, and if you have questions, and most importantly, that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be answering your questions. If you want to know about a certain player, or you want to know who to start, who to sit, maybe who to pick up last minute, go ahead and ask us. There's 3 ways that you can do it. First, you can call us 772-800-BUZZ, or you can go to our Facebook page and put a comment in there. It'll come to us immediately and we will answer it, or on our YouTube page as well. So any of the comments or phone calls, we will get right to it. But we have our number one fan, Kenneth, on the phone right now. Kenneth, how you doing today?
Oh, pretty good. Had a very nice Thanksgiving holiday.
Good. Very good.
Due to time constraints, I'll save that for another time. The reason why I was calling is I have Mike Davis and a Brian Hill in my lineup. Should I roll with them? I do have James White, Damian Harris, and Matt Breida available on my bench.
The only question that I would have would be Damian Harris. I know that Sonny Michel is going to eat into some of his carries today, but the other 2 running backs with Mike Davis and Brian Hill, I think those are the guys, if you're going to start 2 of them, those are guys who are going to be getting the lion's share of the carries in each of their teams. I don't know. What do you guys think? Because it's tough to bench someone like Damian Harris, right, who's been playing so well.
He has been playing well, and this week is such it's such a crazy week. You have Brian Hill who steps in. Matt Breida may be getting some carries today. They're kind of short on running backs there. Out of all those players, I definitely go with Brian Hill. Atlanta has the Raiders. Julio Jones is questionable. Actually, most likely out. Is he ruled out now?
Out.
Okay, so Julio Jones is out. I think Brian Hill is the play there. That's what I would suggest.
Well, yeah, to me, it's no question. Actually, Brian Hill throughout most of the season looks better running the ball than Todd Gurley. And he's going to get the lion's share, like Kamish said, as is Mike Davis. And if you're in a half-point PPR or PPR, I think it's a no-brainer. Who knows what that Miami backfield is going to look like with Laird and DeAndre, Washington, and Breida. So, yeah, you got Davis and Hill. You can fire those guys up without concern.
So, in other words, stick with Davis and Hill?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't get cute.
All right, Kenneth, good to hear from you. Take care. Okay, so if you want to be like Kenneth and you have questions that you want to ask us, go ahead and give us a call, 772-800-BUZZ, or comment on YouTube Live or Facebook Live. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start off our updates and pick up streamer starter sits with quarterbacks. What's going on?
Yep. So quarterbacks have gotten much more interesting since Tuesday. For sure. Obviously, a few have already played. You had Deshaun Watson have a great game. You had Andy Dalton have a very, very average game. I did talk about him picking up as a last-minute streamer if you needed him. On Tuesday, he had 220 yards and a touchdown. So nothing great, but, you would have gotten some points. Right now, Phillip Rivers expected to play. He's got his toe injury. Wouldn't worry about him. He plays through injuries. He has his whole career. They have a tough game this week, and but I do think you will see a lot of passes now. And I know you'll get to it in running back, but Taylor's out, so now you have one less running back there. You have running backs that are in there that are I think better at getting screen passes than they are running the ball. So I think you'll see a lot of screen passes. I think you'll see a bit of downfield throwing. So Phillip Rivers, and Rivers was actually one of the quarterbacks that I had brought up as well the other day about streaming. So that's interesting there. Nick Foles out. Trubisky is in. They go against Green Bay tonight. I don't put any stock in it. If you are desperate, that could be interesting. Obviously, all the quarterbacks are in Denver now as of yesterday. So the Denver coaching staff was up apparently all night trying to figure out for Hinton how they're going to work him in. He was a quarterback in college. He's on the practice squad as a receiver, and now he's going to step in and play quarterback is what it looks like.
And unfortunately, Keith, he's listed as a quarterback in ESPN, so you can't take him as your receiver.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah. Well, as we know, they did mention something about Royce Freeman being a emergency quarterback, and as we know, 2020 picked him up. He jumped right on it, and said, "I'll pick him up." I don't see any value in any kind of passing game for Denver this week. They're going against already a tough defense in New Orleans, but that surely will be that's got watch value written all over it.
What I found very interesting was that Denver actually had requested from the NFL that their offensive quality control coach, Rob Calabrese, be eligible to play quarterback.
Because he knew the system.
They felt that a coach that had been there for a few years would actually be their best option at quarterback. The NFL denied it, so they have to start a guy who's never taken a snap in the NFL or even in practice for the Broncos.
It is. It'll be a fun week for New Orleans defense for sure.
Yeah, this should be interesting.
Yeah, quite amazing. It's so crazy that they were thinking about bringing a coach in to play. That would be pretty amazing.
Your three best options,
yeah. And you can't. It's not even like yesterday they could call anybody and bring them in because of the COVID restrictions.
Right.
So you have Tua, who is out, and Fitzmagic steps back in. Going against the Jets, this could be a really nice streamer this week. The weather looks good there. There's no issues there. He likes to sling the ball. They two completely different looking offenses when you've had each quarterback on the field. They know that Fitzpatrick, sling the ball around. It puts other, and their running game is a little bit in distress. So I think you'll see a nice day from Fitzpatrick there. Lamar Jackson out, COVID. We don't even know if this game's going to happen. Not only is Lamar Jackson out, but offensive linemen, defensive players. Now Mark Andrews, as I'll get to later in tight ends. So they were already not having a good season there in Baltimore. This just get Baltimore out of there. We'll talk about some other quarterbacks to stream last minute.
Here are the numbers in Baltimore, by the way. At least 11 players have tested positive for COVID. 20 players have been added to the reserve COVID list, and 10 staffers have tested positive. So that is a dire situation, and the fact that the NFL is playing this game is extremely irresponsible.
Well, there's still a chance that they don't. I actually think that they will not play this game.
Well, even after Mark Andrews, who tested positive, and they came out this morning, they still came out and said they still plan on playing the game. They said they do not postpone the games due to a personnel issue.
But
they
It's
do it for a medical,
not on
a medical decision. Yeah, but now at this point, with 12 players and like you said,
Right.
players on Pittsburgh as well.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't get it.
Something to consider, by the way, for our listeners, and something that we do in our league, which is very smart, where you have a game that's up in the air like this, and you're not sure what to do. If you're a commissioner and you're listening, you're in a league and you're listening, something about possibly bringing your league and your commissioner is do a contingency plan. For example, like if I have the Steelers defense, if the game's going to go on as is, I'm starting my defense. But if it doesn't, to have a contingency plan, if you have any players in the Steelers or Ravens, it's a great idea on how to work with these games if this might not even happen on Tuesday when it's after the fact. So it's something that we've been doing and has been working, something to bring to your league if that happens to you.
Yeah, it's definitely a good value to have that in place. If you haven't, then you should. I'll tell you a couple quick quarterbacks that I found out there. Daniel Jones goes against Cincinnati today. He's less than 25% rostered. Should have a real good opportunity today with a Cincinnati offense. Also, that obviously we know that Burrow is out, and so they're going to be, I think, not being able to move the ball as much today. So I think Daniel Jones will have an ample opportunity to actually do pretty well today. Teddy Bridgewater, only 30% rostered, gets Minnesota today. And you have Minnesota 21st ranked pass defense. So I like that. And then I already talked about Fitzpatrick. So those are three quarterbacks right there that if you need help, those are three good guys to go after.
So, I have a question because I actually have him in our league, and that is, I had Lamar, so obviously I can't start Lamar. But I have Carson Wentz, and it's a very interesting day for Carson Wentz since two issues. Number one, he's going to be playing against Seattle, who is the worst defense in the league against the pass. And number two, we play team quarterback, and it's been announced that Jalen Hurts has actually been taking some of the snaps with the first team, which could mean running, wildcat, some interesting plays. Would you start a Philly team defense as opposed to Fitzpatrick?
Or a Philly team quarterback?
Team quarterback?
No,
so,
I would not.
Yes,
I'd get Fitzpatrick out there for sure. The Jets are very easy to pass on. Fitz has looked good. He's putting up 250, 300 yards, 2-3 touchdowns. They get Parker's healthy. The running game's in, like Brad said, and is distressed. I don't think you take a chance with that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. As I do actually have that here, I just missed it. Was that Jalen Hurts is took more first team snaps. We saw that really strange interview the other day with Doug Peterson when he was asked about Carson Wentz and making changes. It was a little strange, but I think the door is open for Jalen Hurts to get a little bit more opportunity. Do you start them? I don't know. I think there's other, as 2020 just said, there's other people out there I think I would start instead of them.
Yeah, I think Fitzpatrick's a real sneaky start this week.
Okay, so let's go ahead with running backs.
Okay. Interesting week with running backs. It's the week of the comeback for those people that have been patient with Chris Carson and Austin Eckler and Raheem Mostert. It is definitely the week of the comeback. So let's start off with some updates. And I basically just said it. Austin Eckler is off IR, and he's set to play week 12. Interestingly enough, also some running back news on that team as well. Kalen Ballage, who has been shouldering a load for the last 3 weeks, is injured, and he might not play. So this could be a nice little bump up. Maybe not possibly easing Eckler back in. It could be a healthy dose of him and Traymon Pope and Kelly. But I see Eckler, who looked very good when he was healthy and in, doing a nice job this week. So Eckler's back in. Ballage is most likely out. Gio Bernard had a concussion, but he has been a full participant in practice. They believe he's going to play. So I would say it's not a great situation with a rookie quarterback in place of Burrow going against the Giants, who actually have the 10th best scoring defense. But Bernard is going to play today in the news for that. We would have talked about Ballage, is not expected to play versus the Bills. Mostert is completely activated off. We talked about that. He is going to play in full. Royce Freeman, we talked about that. Interestingly, announced he might be sharing, as we just talked about, quarterback duties with Kendall Hinton. Myles Gaskin, as well as Savin Ahmed, are not going to be playing. It's going to be a split backfield between Patrick Laird, some combination of him. And he is one of my streamers this week as a possibility because it looks like he'll probably lead that backfield. Then they'll mix in DeAndre Washington and bring in Matt Breida on third downs and passing downs. We talked about Chris Carson completely off the injury report. So very comfortable with getting that guy the ball. He's been great out of the backfield, and he's their goal line back. And, of course, we talked about Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Literally those entire teams sitting on the COVID infirmary. One of the guys there is James Conner, which leaves a nice replacement option in Benny Snell. They have the rookie Anthony McFarland, but it looks like it's going to be Benny Snell's backfield for most of the game with Conner sitting out because of COVID. Christian McCaffrey isn't traveling to Minnesota. We talked about that. Kenneth brought that up. Mike Davis, fine start there, but he's out. Jonathan Taylor comes off a great week last week. You expect he's dead in the water. Naheem Hines is absolutely shredding it, has a great week. And that JT's on the COVID list. So a great replacement there. Of course, Naheem Hines is already scooped up. He's been absolutely on fire the last few weeks. But you can also take a look at Jordan Wilkins because he's going to be mixing it up with JT out. It'll be Hines and Wilkins all throughout the day there. Todd Gurley out. You're going to have, we talked about that. Brian Hill, a great replacement start there going against the Raiders, who are without a couple key elements on their defense. So I like Brian Hill getting some grabs if you have half point or full point PPR. Hasn't done much. He's not getting a ton of options, but when he does, he generally looks like the better back there.
I feel really bad because I had picked up Brian Hill before it was announced that Gurley wouldn't play because he had been announced as questionable. And I thought, maybe there's a chance. And I wasn't sure Chris Carson is my other back. And I wasn't sure if Chris Carson was going to play. So I brought in Brian Hill. But now that Carson's playing, I'm starting him. And I feel bad because now Brian Hill's sitting on my bench.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough. It's going to be tough.
You're feeling bad for Brian Hill?
No, I'm actually feeling bad for Bruno because he had Todd Gurley. And now he's stuck starting.
Don't feel bad. I'm playing him.
Oh, well, he's stuck starting Gordon in Denver, and I wouldn't touch anybody in Denver right now.
Well, and actually, we have a question.
You could have used Brian Hill.
Yeah, someone's asking, would he start Kendall Hilton as a desperate play? I mean, you would have to be ridiculously desperate. I mean,
Bobby, I'd like to know who the other options are in your league to pick up at that quarterback position, and that way.
Fitzpatrick, Daniel Jones, Derek Carr, Goff, any of these guys going to have a great day. Any of these, even Taysom Hill.
Titty.
Yeah, Titty.
I think even Trubisky.
Right.
Over it, yeah. I mean, Fitzpatrick might be available. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe it's a 24-person league. And that's only I don't know.
Because I can think about 23 people who would be better option than Kendall Hilton. So
yeah.
Anyway, that rounds out running backs, our news updates, and the replacement starters for that.
Okay.
Moving on to wide receivers.
Yeah, so let's go to wide receivers, and first let's talk about who is not playing this week. Of course, the news just came out. Julio Jones will not be playing. What does that mean? Obviously, for Julio holders, you better replace him with somebody. But if you don't have Julio and you have Calvin Ridley, God bless you. You're in good shape because we're playing against a Raiders defense, which isn't the best against the pass. Look for possibly Russell Gage. Look for Zacchaeus and possibly Hayden Hurst to have good games in Julio's absence. Adam Thielen will not be playing. He had a positive COVID test and a negative COVID test and a positive COVID test and then a negative COVID test. So he had 4 of them. But because he hasn't had time to take another one before the game, he has been ruled out. So look for Jefferson to have a monster game today. Jerry Jeudy, game time decision. If you have him, The fact that he doesn't even have a quarterback throwing to him, I wouldn't even make him part of your discussion. DJ Chark is out. So I don't know. Look for Kenneth Cole. I'm not touching anybody, any of the Jacksonville receivers today. Brandon Ayuk is also on the not expected to return from the COVID list. Deebo Samuel was taken off of the COVID list. So now he's going to be the lone wide receiver option with the 49ers. Larry Fitzlegend, unfortunately, he has COVID. He is out. Look for Christian Kirk and Andy Isabella to step up. The matchup that Andy and Isabella has, believe it or not, is actually very good today with cornerback matchups. So he's somebody that I'm sure is available. And if you're desperate at wide receiver, you could look at Christian Kirk or Andy Isabella. Jakeem Grant right now is questionable. That could be a game time decision in Miami. And John Brown was placed on the injured reserve. Not that probably anybody has him or was playing him, but look for Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley to step it up today. I'm going to talk about streamers now. So there's a few guys that are out there. This isn't the full list, but there's a few guys that if they're available, you should grab them. The first of which is Nelson Aguilar. He scored at least 13 fantasy points in 5 of his last 7 games, which, look, it's not 20, but it's something. And if you need a streamer, 13 isn't bad. He's got a 16% target share with the team, which is pretty good. And today he goes against the Falcons. How can you not love that matchup? So if you have an opportunity to grab Nelson Aguilar, he could be a good start today. Michael Pittman, we talked about him on Tuesday, about picking him up. I think we even talked about him last week, about possibly picking him up in week 11. He's been great over the past 2 weeks. He's averaged more than 17 points a game. And here the Titans, they've actually allowed almost 43 points per game to wideouts this year, just behind the Falcons. And then there's Travis Fulgham. Now, keep in mind, Travis Fulgham, who had an incredible October, when November hit and Jalen Reagor came back, he's done terrible. He's only had 2 receptions for 16 yards, but he has been targeted 12 times. So, again, if you're very desperate, Travis Fulgham is probably available in your league. He's somebody that may have an interesting day today. And that's all I have for wide receivers. Let's jump into tight ends.
All right. Yeah, we do have a couple of comments here.
Questions out there.
Yeah. So Javi said, in my wide receiver slot, Judy and Curtis Samuel in wide receiver slot. So I don't know if he's looking to put Hinton in his wide receiver slot, although Hinton's list, you said, is listed once they brought him up from the practice squad as a QB, right?
In ESPN.
In ESPN. Yes. So that could be different. Okay.
But if it's between Samuel and Judy, then you're going with Samuel. I'm not sure what he's asking, but I would go with Samuel.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Okay. Then we have, would it be wise to start Eric Ebron versus the Ravens? As we're getting into tight end here, I would say be very careful, just because make sure you have some kind of contingency plan, as we talked about before, 2020 brought up again, because if this game is not played and you start a player from that game, you can't go back, and say, oh, start this other player. You want to make sure there's either a contingency plan or you have somebody else to start today and put them in instead, because as we just don't know if that game's going to be played.
Right.
So, yep. Then also Kenneth mentioned that Valdez Scantling is now listed as out.
Right.
So that's an update there. So interesting. I didn't keep up with that. Did he get hurt during the week? He had that fumble at the end of the game last week, but he didn't look injured. So I don't know if something happened during the week. Anyway. So
yeah, no, it's an injury. It's his Achilles. Okay. He's been sidelined all week because of it. So they just ruled him as out.
Okay. So getting into some tight ends, a few that are, just some updates. Jordan Reed, game time decision, as far as we knew before the show started. Mark Andrews out because of COVID. We've already talked about this. It's also the Ravens game. Be careful there. He also, as we said, has type 1 diabetes. So we're hoping for a good recovery for him. Tyler Higbee, game time decision. Hayden Hurst is expected to play with Julio Jones out, and the running back, is out. Of course, you have Brian Hill stepping in. So Todd Gurley, is out. So look for maybe some extra targets going to Hayden Hurst. He is listed and he is expected to play. Not that it's a big deal because no one would have him, but Irv Smith Jr. is out. Now, why I bring that up is because Kyle Rudolph could be a nice streamer this week. A, you have Irv Smith Jr. out. B, you have Adam Thielen out. So it opens up targets for Kyle Rudolph this week, who has not had a great year. He picks up a couple of catches here and there, but that could be a streamer this week. I don't know if I brought up Jordan Reed as a game time decision. You got Deebo Samuel coming back. You have Mostert coming back. You have all these other. They're a mess there anyway. He he has had a couple decent, here and there games when he's been in there. He just doesn't stay healthy. Game time decision, so keep an eye on that. As far as streamers, we just talked about it. Kyle Rudolph ends up being a decent streamer this week if you need somebody. And again, another tight end that is just not. We talked about him on Tuesday is Robert Tonyan in Green Bay. Now with Valdez-Scantling out, also makes him a little bit better value there. So those are my couple streamers. Those are the tight ends that are out or in or game time. And good luck.
Yeah, really. So let's jump to defense, Keith.
Yeah, tight end has been one of the most dubious positions this year. All right, so with defense, obviously, you're going to start all the good teams that are out there. Miami's got a great matchup. New Orleans, great matchup. But three teams that are probably going to be available on your waiver wire, other than the obvious starts that you're going to do. I'm going to start with the New York Giants. Obviously, they have a great matchup going against a Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati team. Gio Bernard has not looked good in that lineup. There's not a lot of offensive weapons there outside of Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. And the Giants have quietly become the 10th best scoring defense in the league. They have the 4th most sacks, the 5th most turnovers, and they blitz a lot, 29% of the time, which is leading to those 27 sacks. So I like the Giants, and they're widely available. Secondly, I like, and you did a nice job picking these guys up a couple weeks ago, Commish, and the Browns. The Browns going at Jacksonville. Another blitz-heavy team. They blitz about 30% of the time, and they average nearly 3 sacks a game. And I just like them going up against Jacksonville, and they're hurting offensively, having some of their star firepowers out. And then lastly, you're not going to believe I'm going to say this because this is a defense that has not looked really very good this year, but the last couple of weeks they started turning it around a little bit, and that's the Seahawks. And again, this is all the, these are streamers that we're talking about. You know the teams that you want to play if you can, Miami, New Orleans, what have you. But the Seahawks are going against the Eagles. Carson Wentz leads the league in interceptions with 14, and he's responsible personally for 18 total turnovers, which is probably one of the reasons why they're looking at bringing Jalen Hurts in, because quite amazingly, they're still in the playoff hunt at 3-7? It's absolutely insane. So I like Seattle to get to Wentz, maybe create some turnovers, maybe even get a pick 6 this week. So there'll be a fun play to watch this week, and that's going to round out defenses.
All right. So we're still answering your questions here. If you have any questions, give us a call, 772-800-BUZZ, or you can always comment on YouTube Live or Facebook Live. And what I want to talk to you guys about is where the NFL is right now with regard to COVID. I know that at the beginning of the season, we had our predictor meter as to whether or not we were going to end up playing, and if I was very pessimistic about it. And then I was pleasantly surprised at how well the NFL was doing for the first half or first quarter of the season by keeping people healthy and safe. What's happened? Why do you guys think we've had this spread all of a sudden? What's going on in the NFL? What has changed, do you think?
Honestly, I think it's what's happening outside of the NFL as well. I mean, the NFL players, they're just people. When they're not playing Sunday, they're out and about. They're not in a bubble, which is what the NBA did. And when you're talking about a country that's getting confirmed on average 100,000 cases a day, last weekend alone, we had 500,000 cases. And actually what the CDC said recently, we have 13 million confirmed, but they really believe it's closer to somewhere between 80 and 100 million people that really have this walking around asymptomatic, not knowing it. So it is just rampant. So when you're talking about an infection rate and then a spread that rate with no one in a bubble, they're as prone to it as we are. And then when you're a football player, you're strong, you're big, you feel completely resilient. Maybe you let your mask down, pun intended, your guard down a little bit. So I think it's happening in the NFL. It's just a reflection of what's happening to us in real life. And they're just not being as diligent, and it is just playing its way into the league.
Yeah. So, I mean, Brad, I know you're going through some stuff, but what do you think has been going on in the NFL? The same thing that Keith had said?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, you watch these games and you watch the coaches and you watch the sporadic mask wearing on the sidelines.
Yeah.
You see it, and then you see it with it down constantly. You see players who are supposed to be wearing masks on the sideline and they're not. And you just see that during the games. What do you think's happening at practices? What do you think's happening when those players go home? As 2020 was saying, somebody was ruled out because their girlfriend had COVID, so they're a close contact. In the NFL, I mean, these people go home. They're going home. They're going home. They're going here. They're going there. They're interacting with people that are out. So yeah, it's going to happen. Coaches. The Baltimore outbreak, they're going back to this one coach who was not wearing his mask around the practice facility. The quarterbacks in Denver, they were all in a room and they weren't wearing their masks. They felt, oh, you're okay because I know you. Oh, it must be fine. Oh, we can all take our masks off. It's no big deal. I've had it with places that I go visit for work. I go to work and I always have my mask on anytime I'm in a place. I try not to go into, a lot of times when I do my job, I have to be like in a back room or something. And I say, no, I don't want to be in a closed in room. And then, even in some of the places where I've been, they say, hey, it's just us. We could take our mask off. It's okay. Like, no, it's not okay. You don't know where I've been. I don't know where you've been. You're going home. I'm going home. We're going different places. Keep your mask on.
So the question is, do you think that the NFL should have, and I know it should have, would have, could have, but do you think the NFL should have treated the season similar to, well, you can't do an NBA bubble, but similar to they do in training camp where they're all in their own hotel and everybody, for the most part, on that team, they have a curfew when practice is over. They at least keep them isolated. Or do you think that would have been too difficult, or the players' union wouldn't have allowed it?
I think it's their responsibility. I mean, look, these guys are paid, 10, some of them hundreds of millions of dollars to go out there and play football for the sole purpose of entertaining us. So, and I know this, it's not like an entitlement thing, but that is the fact. These guys are the best of the best, getting paid ridiculous amounts of money. So you know what? How long does the season last? It starts in September, ends in January. So it's like for 4 months. I really feel like the NFL should have imposed some ridiculously strict rules, like completely limited to the people, maybe even immediate family, that they are not able to come in contact with. Because when you're talking about getting out on the field and 22 guys mixing it up in the trenches, exchanging sweat and snorts and snarls. I mean, fluids flying everywhere. You have to create what would be like almost an imaginary, illusionary bubble. And the only way to do that is completely cut it off from the rest of the world. And that's really what should have happened. I'm surprised it's gone this far, this long, with only the outbreaks that we've had when you look at what's going on in the outside world. So, and it's just going to get worse. I mean, I really see that this is what we're seeing this week, as bad as it is going to be the norm for the next several weeks until the season ends.
Well, the NFL is considering a bubble for the playoffs, which would be a lot more interesting because you can do that, because now you're talking about a lot less teams than you would if it was a full season. I don't know if they would do the same type of thing the NBA did in Orlando, where it's completely shut down, but they actually have the ability to do that. So it should be interesting to see what happens. And I agree with you, Keith. I think it was extremely irresponsible the way that, look, the NFL has done a lot, right? They've required testing every day for players and staff and coaches. And that testing alone has helped curb that spread, despite the fact that it's spreading and what we're seeing now. I can't even imagine how much worse it would be had the NFL at least not taken the steps of requiring testing and requiring isolation and putting players on COVID lists and things like that. So I give a lot of credit to the NFL for doing that. However, I do think that once they're off the playing field, there should have been a little more policing, a little more isolation, a little more curfew to keep that spread. And again, it makes it sound like we're being petty by saying, we've got to keep it from spreading. But the point is, these players are people, and they have wives and girlfriends and mothers and fathers and grandparents and kids, and and these are all people that could be affected, and then they spread it to other people as well. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just upset right now, not about losing games, not about things like that, not about losing players, but more about the spread of COVID through the NFL.
It's brought in from the top of our country, and unfortunately, it hasn't been a good example from the top of our country. Right. And that filters down into the entire country. Hopefully it gets better. I mean, it's certainly right now getting worse. And with people traveling, the millions and millions of people traveled over Thanksgiving, I honestly don't really understand the league saying, okay, we're going to shut down Monday and Tuesday because of COVID. And, I don't know what that's going to do. Maybe they just want to test everybody and then see what's going on. But the problem is, people don't necessarily, and I've learned this, and we know this. People, just because you think you might have it, or you were near someone and you test today negative, doesn't mean that tomorrow or the next day you don't test positive.
Right. Because
it sits in your system and it doesn't necessarily show yet. So those days you're still walking around and potentially giving it to other people. So some people are like, oh, I tested negative, I'm good, let's go. And that's just not the reality. And that's one of the, I think, major issues with the spread of this virus in the first place.
Yeah, well, the worst thing about this virus is the asymptomatic symptoms, if that's a way of saying it. It's just so many people walking around with this, having no idea that they have this, infecting so many others, and that's why we are where we are. So it's just a matter of trying to be as cautious as possible. So if you're watching this, first and foremost, enjoy the stats, enjoy the opinions, enjoy the fantasy football. But you know what? If there's any one biggest message that we could probably give you today, it's do not let your guard down. Stay safe, because you might be healthy and you might get this and blow this off as if it was the flu. The problem is the person that you maybe might give this to could have a pre-existing condition and could be older, and they might not be as lucky. So to me, I can tell you, I'm sure I can speak for all three of us, our biggest message is, not for you, but for everyone around you, stay safe, wear your mask. It's definitely doing the right thing.
All right. Anything else before we go?
No, it should be an interesting day of football today with Denver and Baltimore, which is Tuesday, and Pittsburgh, and all these other injuries, COVID, all of these different things. Should definitely be interesting. And we didn't even bring up the fact that San Francisco doesn't have a stadium, doesn't have a place to play for the next 2 weeks. You read this, right? The county is shut down any contact sports, and that's from youth to professional. It doesn't matter. So the whole county, city, I guess, is is completely shut down. So now San Francisco has 2 home games coming up after this week. They have to figure out where to play.
That's right.
And they can't even practice. They can't even go home and practice. They're going to have to figure out something else to do.
But that's them trying to be responsible. Good for them.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. It's interesting, though. Playoff races are really starting to heat up, both in fantasy, in our league, and in all leagues, as well as in the NFL. So it's that exciting time of the year in the NFL. A little sad because you're feeling your season wind down, but at the same time, it's when the excitement's kicking up. So I certainly hope you're listening to us and getting some good intel. You're doing well in your leagues because of us. And I'll say good luck to you guys this week, kind of, wink, wink. But yeah, looking forward to some exciting, almost up to playoff football.
All right. We will see you all Tuesday night. Have a fun day and a fun football day and a good fun football night tomorrow night and hopefully Tuesday night.